Podcast. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Big 10 game slate tonight, and we're taking a look at the Vegas spreads here so far and the totals. And I mean, a lot of high scoring games. The only game total that's under 200 is Memphis and Portland. There are some blowout concerns tonight. Obviously, Cleveland 12.5 point favorites. The Thunder are 13.5 point favorites. Indiana 11.5 point favorites, and then you got the Clippers who are just 9 point favorites, but going up against 76ers, I still think that's obviously still a blowout concern.
Yeah, I think one of the main games we're going to be looking at tonight is the Kings and Cavaliers. And I guess the way you view this is if you think the Cavaliers are going to run away with this one. If you think the Kings are going to stay close, then you should be really on this game. I'm not. I think this could be a LeBron get them up 20 to 25 in the first half type game. But I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I think it's I think these blowout games are still safe cash game plays. But I think as far as GPPs go, I think you can kind of pivot off them maybe a little bit and look at these other games like Charlotte and Chicago, Atlanta, Orlando, especially Minnesota, New Orleans, and kind of maybe go with those more games as more of a balanced route for cheaper production who still carry a bunch of upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this Thunder Suns game with that 13.5 sort of spread for the Thunder, they have a high over-under, so I am looking at Westbrook and Durant tonight, and I think I'm going to make a few lineups with them. I know I am, but it could go down in flames because they could not be playing the entire fourth quarter. And at their prices now, you have to pretty much hit 50, 60, 65 points to hit value. So that's difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I just think if you look at cash game ownership, it's going to be high for those. I think everyone's going to be on kind of the same boat, so you're playing it safe there. But GPPs, I think you're looking just maybe a little bit cheaper, kind of like the other nights with the Curry, Westbrook. Durant was kind of the only one to really pop off where you need him, but you could have gotten a lot cheaper at the point guard spots. So I think it's kind of going to be in a similar situation. And how often have we seen the Cavs have a 115 total, even though their offense is really good?
Right. Absolutely.
It's surprising, but
for a little more value, I do like this Pelicans Timberwolves game tonight. I think there's quite a few targets in there that I'm looking at, especially down low.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we'll get into them a little bit later, but obviously a 210 game total, which is a 1 point spread, is obviously it just jumps out as my favorite game of the night on both sides.
Right. And then the awkward Magic Hawks rematch from yesterday. So those are always interesting back-to-backs against the same team. So we'll be talking about that game as well.
Yeah, kind of interesting. I mean, if you look at, Vooch had that game winner, but the Hawks are eight point favorites tonight at home. So
what a sick game winner, by the way. I was so mad. I saw it get tied up with like 3 seconds left, and then Vooch just rips your heart out. So, oh well, moving on.
It was a fun game to watch, and I think it's going to be another close game again tonight. Looking at point guards, looking at some injuries. Ish Smith, questionable. I think he's more so on the probable side. It was just kind of a one-game precaution with him. You saw T.J. McConnell step in and get the start, so that would be the case again. He would be my preferred play, but obviously it's a tough matchup against Chris Paul, so I think that situation is just an easy one to avoid in general.
Right. I think sometimes you look at those sort of contrarian, they've been questionable all day plays, and then maybe if they play, you throw them in. But this is a tough matchup. Even if he was fully 100%, I wouldn't be on him. So a fade either way for me tonight.
Yeah. Not an injury news with Rose, but with Jimmy Butler out, obviously he's going to get just a monster usage rate again tonight. And I mean, you look at the last game, he had a 36% usage rate when Butler sat out, and that was even with Gasol back. So averaging 19, 5, and 6, I think Rose is kind of one of your better points per dollar plays again tonight. Going to be popular, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, without Butler, he's a slightly less selfish old version of himself. So this is an interesting play, and I mean his price is suppressed. So at that $7K-ish price tag, that's a nice value for tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go up too, so you kind of want to use him while you can before he starts getting lost in all those high-priced point guards. But um, he's kind of an easy play tonight. Definitely a great cash game option. I still think even though he's going to be popular, GPPs he's going to be worth that.
Yeah, and in terms of cash games tonight, I think Kyrie Irving and Chris Paul are nice. They've been really consistent over the last sort of 10 games or so, and I think they're pretty much, even in a blowout situation, they're gonna get you your points in cash games. So I do like them in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last time Paul played the 76ers, it was just 26 minutes, but he went 15, 5, and 14.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like you said, I think, points per minute, they're high price or high guys. So you can trust him a little bit more in blowout situations, which is why we always like Westbrook because the guy triple doubles in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's your legit top option tonight, even price considered. I
Yeah.
mean, it should just be automatic. We should just have a banner that always says Westbrook is your top option at point guard tonight.
And again, if you think there's a blowout factor, then you definitely want to hedge at least a little bit in some of your lineups and not be 100% Westbrook or 100% Durant. But you have to make a few just because of that potential. Even at that price, I mean, he literally has 70 or 80 point potential in this matchup. So,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. There's a lot of great cheaper options tonight. In that Minnesota New Orleans game, I like both sides as far as point guards go. Rubio's kind of your safer play. I like Drew Holiday in GPPs. I still can't get behind him in cash games at his higher price tag. Where does Holiday stand for you?
yeah, I just think there's so many other plays I like around him that it's not that he's not an option tonight. Maybe in a smaller slate type deal, you like him more, but with Rose right there, sitting right next to him, it's not as much of an option for me tonight.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. I think, you like Rubio, you like Rose. Even Irving is only a couple hundred more than him, so you like those play. And then we like going down cheaper. Jeff Teague still priced, remotely cheap even after his 50-point outing. Been really consistent lately. Kind of seen a bump in minutes over the last two games, which isn't always usually his thing, but 30 and 35 over the last two, it's kind of nice to see finally.
Yeah, it's nice to see him get more minutes. I mean, again, tonight, I do like Rubio over him. So at that spot, unless I'm pivoting in a tournament, I kind of like Rubio at that spot, but he is a nice play.
Yeah, Rubio's your higher upside play.
Mm-hmm.
Looking a little bit cheaper, I love Emmanuel Mudiay tonight. Coming off his first zero turnover game of the season. And, turnovers have always been the thing that kills him, especially on FanDuel where it's a whole points taken off. I mean, he's had those 7 turnover games where it's absolutely killed you.
Right. Yeah. It seems like he's starting to get a little, like, sort of start to push into a little more of a primary role on that team. So I do like him. And especially at that price, until it starts going up a little more, I do like him on both sites.
Yeah, me too. I mean, if you look, he's not shooting particularly well. He never has this season, but I mean, coming off 2 back-to-back 35-plus fantasy point games, it's another great matchup for him tonight. It's really hard to expect anything less than 30 points in this matchup.
Yeah, that's a really nice game. Brooklyn has actually been really, really a really nice fantasy game. They've been involved in the last few days. So yeah, I really like that matchup tonight.
Yeah, I mean, they play zero defense and they keep games close. So it's always nice.
Right.
Looking cheaper, Alfred Payton, tougher matchup still, but obviously he showed that he can put up upside coming off a double-double game against Jeff Teague in Atlanta. I still think he's more reserved for GPPs, but I mean, in 3 games against Atlanta this season, he's averaged 14, 2, and 7. So it's pretty impressive, a nice, decent sample size. Definitely just reserved for GPPs, but I do think his ownership is going to be a little bit higher because of yesterday.
Right. I think, yeah, in terms of tournaments, if you're stacking him with an Aaron Gordon or a Vukovic or an Oladipo, we were laughing before the game. I called him a Lapido, but Oladipo, yeah, like I like that stack. If you can do something like that in the tournament, I don't think he's going to be crazy high owned, just considering all the other options. But yeah, those are the types of moves you want to make if you're getting him in your lineup.
Yeah. if we're talking a little bit about minutes, with the whole healthy Charlotte Hornets, Jeremy Lin's only played 23 and 16 in the last two games. So it's just, finally Charlotte's getting healthy, so he's kind of taking that backseat role as far as guys go. So avoid him tonight just in case if you were trying to throw him in for a cheap guy.
Yeah, and there's always that Kemba random gets in a shootout with Derrick Rose type of game. So he's going to be a low-owned contrarian play, I think, but that's pretty much reserved for your last tournament lineup that you're making,
Yeah, that's a good call because, we have seen Kemba getting back and forth battles with other opposing point guards and both go off. So if you kind of want to play that route, it's definitely a good theory tonight. Moving over to shooting guard, we talked about Jimmy Butler being out. Rose obviously gets a big usage, but Etuan Moore, he's kind of your step-in filler, and his only kind of down game in the last three was against Denver when he came in for Butler, but still 38, 31, and 38 minutes in the last three games, shooting over 50% in those two of those three games. So, he's a guy who can get hot in a hurry, especially from three-point line.
Yeah, he's the definition of sort of a lower-end tournament play. You're looking for that 30 to 40-point upside. If you can get that at that low 5K range, then that's a huge win. He's probably going to be higher owned tonight, so it might not be as big of an advantage as it was those other two nights, but it's still a nice play.
Yeah. Tyreek Evans, he's going to remain out. He's going to be out until the All-Star break, so there's going to be no guessing games up until that point. It just means you're going to see Bryce Jean-Jones step in and play. Should have been bigger minutes, but he didn't produce against.
Yeah, we
Cavs there.
We were talking about this before the show. His price on FanDuel is still crazy low, so I think he's a better option there. But tonight, I just think there's so many other good options at shooting guard in that value range that you can do it, but I don't know that it's totally worth his sort of lack of ceiling there.
Yeah. If you look at, maybe if he put up another 20 fantasy point game against Cleveland in 30-plus minutes, he'd be an okay play. But 20, 43, 23, and 24 minutes over the last four games, I still think that maybe they're finally coming around that Holiday and Cole need to be the options in the backcourt.
Yeah.
So he's an easy avoid, especially with all the value tonight deep down there at shooting guard.
Yeah.
Kobe has a questionable tag, but he is probable for tonight's game, which is nice because it should keep things close. And we're talking, and you said Kobe, word for word here, is a thing again.
He is. And he's not old Kobe, and he's not ever going to be old Kobe again. But he's jacking up those shots, and he's actually getting some peripheral stats right now. So this is making him an interesting fantasy option. When he plays, he's going to be getting a ton of usage. So, and he's been really producing over the last 3 or 4 games. So I think this might be a trend that continues for a while.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you there. He's kind of always in play regardless of, or, just depending on whether he's going to be probable that night or not. But, it's just, he's kind of borderline cash.
Yeah. And his price is still cheap. He was so bad earlier in the year that we're going to get a little string here where it's going to be a while before he hits 7K. So I think he's a good value tonight if he plays, just because he's going to get so much opportunity.
Yeah. Looking at other injury options, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's out until the All-Star break, but especially expected to return right after. So we'll get Stanley Johnson here for the next few games. And Stanley Johnson's been phenomenal. I was really impressed with that Indy game where he played with 4 fouls for the most part of that game, and eventually fouled out, but still played 30 minutes and still put up over 30 fantasy points.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing Etuan Moore be a little more unique in terms of someone coming in when the shooting guard's out and getting the production. It seems like a lot of the time now it either goes to the usage goes to the small forward or the point guard in the offense, and that's kind of what we're going to see here. I don't really see a shooting guard emerging there. So you're just looking more at Stanley Johnson as sort of getting more usage and more minutes.
Yeah, and it's not an ideal matchup against Toronto, but I'm a little hesitant on DK where he's 5,900. I think that's really pricey. I don't think you can consider value anymore, especially with Batum just sitting there a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Jeff Green's cheaper than him, even though he's in a tougher spot. But Joe Johnson as well. So I think he's more of a FanDuel play for me tonight.
That makes sense. I still like him, but I'm not really liking Detroit that much tonight in general. So I'd be okay with sort of staying away from him tonight, especially like you mentioned with the other values on board.
Yeah. The other injury has been McLemore, doubtful for tonight. We've seen Bellinelli play big minutes. I was impressed with him yesterday. I thought it was a tough matchup against Boston's backcourt, but went 16-4-2 with a steal. So took 17 shots. He's taken 17, 12, 14, and 15 in the last 4 games. So he's getting his shot attempts up. He's playing big minutes. Not a big high floor guy, but a nice cash game option, maybe a punt GPP play to help you pay up for those other guys.
Yeah, I watched that game yesterday, and it was like the tale of 2 seasons. And it was just like pure chaos on one end versus, Willie Cauley-Stein is just running around out there. He's just running around, having a great time, slam dunking, and just I don't know what he was doing, but it worked for him. So, but that's a different story. But yeah, I do like Bellinelli tonight. I think he's looking to shoot a shot. Like you see him every time he gets the ball, he's looking for that shot first thing. So he had some tough defensive matchups yesterday, so he might see a little more room today.
Yeah, definitely. If you kind of look at yesterday's game, I was watching because I had nothing better to do at 1:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday, so no football. But you looked and Bellinelli was open for a lot of shots, and you're kind of looking. Cleveland hasn't been great defensively. He's going to see J.R. Smith, who not a big defensive guy at all. So and
they were running plays for Bellinelli.
Yeah, he was coming off a lot of screens and getting open looks. So hopefully that continues tonight. And you saw for the most part, Boston was blowing them out at times, and you expect Cleveland to kind of be doing the same tonight, but Bellinelli still played his minutes. So I think he's a safe option.
Yeah.
Kind of going to our main plays. I think DeMar DeRozan is your safe option tonight if you're paying up, but you have to pay up for that safety. I'm not really inclined to doing that for the most part, but I think he is your top option as shooting guard. Just regardless of price, yes. I think he is your guy.
He is, but I do like the value better than him tonight. I'm probably not going to have – again, I'm not really targeting that Detroit-Toronto game. So him and Lowry, I'm probably – for better or worse, I'm pretty much out on for tonight. Yeah. McCollum, I don't really see the upside against Memphis either. I think that's a tough matchup for him. So I'm not really in on him either.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think McCollum's kind of off the board. In a tougher, slower pace matchup, it's the lowest total on the night. Still at a pretty high price tag. I think you like Oladipo more. He has more upside. Ellis is kind of a risky play. I still think the floor is a little bit lower than I like for his recent price, especially with how he's been playing of late, especially with Paul George taking over, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
What about Wiggins? You've kind of been nailing the Wiggins play lately.
I like it tonight. I think after Dang's last game, I think a lot of people are going to be on him, even though his price is going up. I think Towns is the clear play in that game for Minnesota. He's pretty much guaranteed production. But I do see this as another night where you can throw Wiggins in. He's going to be low owned, and he could have 35 to 40 fantasy points.
Dang, so calling it out, calling the Wiggins burger tonight.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. Looking down, Phoenix, Devin Booker, Archie Goodwin. Archie Goodwin is a point guard on FanDuel, but DK, he's same prices as Booker there. I prefer Booker a little bit more tonight. It's been a little bit more consistent. And you kind of got to hope. They're going to have to keep this game close. I think if you're kind of banking on that, they're not bad options, but definitely just GPP plays.
Yeah, no, I do like Booker more than Goodwin. Goodwin's kind of resurged himself the last 2 games or so, but I just think Booker's the better player and the more consistent option, so I like him at that price. Will Barton, are we going back to the well tonight? I didn't go to the well yesterday, but are we going to it tonight?
I think he's a great play in all formats. I mean, I was not expecting a 40-plus game from him yesterday. I mean, especially in doing it in just 29 minutes. I mean, but he's been consistent otherwise, and he's still shooting the ball well, over 50% in the last 6 games. So against Brooklyn, Barton's definitely in play.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, the Brooklyn games the last few days have been money winners. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues.
yeah. Look at some cheaper options. We talked about Etwan Moore, been really solid, but JJ Redick, Jamal Crawford. I kind of like Crawford a little bit more. He's got a higher usage as he gets the ball in his hands a little bit more. It looks to score 20 real points in the last 4 games. So jacking up shots, gets a Philly defense. Could get some extra run if the blowout happens tonight, especially with no Austin Rivers. So the backcourt's just a little bit more open.
Yeah, and I do like him more than Reddick. It seems like he has just more upside in general.
Yeah.
So Reddick's not a bad play either, though. He is a nice play, but I just think if you're going sort of in that price range, you're probably going Crawford over him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've only seen really one big Reddick game, and that was against Chicago in the last 10 games. But you've seen Crawford be more of a higher upside guy in that span.
Right.
If Tobias Harris sits, I kind of like Evan Fournier at that price. He played big minutes. Not the most ideal matchup, but still put up over 30 fantasy points. And he's done that in the last 2 games. Played 43 minutes yesterday, and you got to expect the same thing if Tobias Harris sits tonight.
Right.
Anyone else you're looking at down low? It's pretty much it.
Not really. I mean, we mentioned Bryce Dijon Jones on FanDuel, but that's pretty much as low as I'm going.
Yeah.
There.
Moving over to small forward, like we mentioned, Tobias Harris would be one of the question marks tonight, questionable coming in. Just because everyone else kind of gets a usage bump going around. We saw Aaron Gordon be more part of the offense, which was nice. Obviously Fournier, but Rudy Gay's the other one. We've seen Caspi come in and play more minutes, but it just means more of a usage for everyone around him.
Right. That's kind of what we're seeing. I mean, Caspi, I think, is a good idea at first, but it hasn't seemed to result in him actually getting the fantasy production we wanted. It's just been kind of spread out. I mean, we've seen that huge Boogie stretch and then Rondo, and it's just all the guys around him, so it's kind of tough to play Caspi.
Yeah, I mean, with all the other small forwards on the slates and good spots, Caspi's just not on my radar tonight.
Yeah.
But I mean, that looks like it's it for injuries, so
yeah,
it's pretty clean at small forward tonight. So now the debate comes down to who you're going with small forward tonight.
This is going to be a fun position tonight. I really like the top options. So, which, I mean, obviously you should like the top options most nights, but this more than most. I think the top 4 or 5 options are really strong. I mean, Durant obviously has the blowout factor, but he still has that huge upside against Phoenix. LeBron, I don't think he has that same upside tonight, but I do think he's a strong play even at his price. What do you think about those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely on to both of them tonight, and I think because maybe this was a smaller slate, it'd be a little bit easier, but with Paul George and Batum sitting 2,000, 3,000 lower than them, it's kind of a nice pivot. You definitely have something to think about, but I do like LeBron a little bit more on DK where he's $900 cheaper. And I like LeBron. It's both those teams. I mean, they're pretty concentrated fantasy points wise. Obviously it's James, it's Irving, it's Love. And then Durant, it's just Durant, Westbrook, and then occasionally Ibaka, Cantor at times. So you know you're going to get points. You like the upside in a 115 team total there. So I think they are your clear-cut number 1 options, but Paul George and Batum, it's
the tournament upside for Batum and George tonight is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love both of those matchups, and especially like you mentioned, you're saving so much cap. You can get them both in on both sites comfortably. And you can just build so much around them, even at with the value shooting guards and point guards tonight. I just think you can build some really strong lineups with George and Batum.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. And I mean, speaking of Paul George, I mean, back-to-back 30 real point games after shooting terribly over the last really 2.5 weeks, 53 and 52% in the last 2 games. So I like him tonight, obviously, against the Lakers defense. That's horrid. So I think at that price, I mean, I think LeBron and Durant are your safe options, but it's really hard because you can build a nice balanced lineup with Paul George.
And I think it's okay to even sort of mix all four of those players in some lineups. I just wouldn't be afraid to put multiple of those four in pretty much all your lineups tonight is how I'm approaching it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in agreement there. And I mean, touching on Batum, I mean, he's been really solid of late, coming off a 57 and 45 point game, one against Miami, struggled against Cleveland and Portland, and Utah, but two tougher defensive teams. So going to get a nice matchup against Chicago tonight, who you like, and he's liked this season. I mean, in 3 games, he's averaged 23, 9, and 3 against them. So at a price tag below 7K, I think he's a great fantasy points per dollar option.
Gallinari is I always love him at that 7K price. It's tougher tonight with Batum sitting right there for 300 less. Yeah. But he is a decent cash option if you're trying to be different. But he doesn't have quite the upside of a Batum tonight.
Yeah, I think that just shows how deep small forward is tonight, because usually we'd be looking at Gallinari as your secondary option between the main guys.
Yeah, against Brooklyn, so it's a pretty decent matchup too. But yeah, he's just wedged in between some really, really high-end options.
Yeah. Going a little bit cheaper, obviously we talked about Stanley Johnson being the guy. Jeff Green's been on a hot streak of late, but not in play tonight against Portland, who've been actually really good defensively of late. So I think that game in general is just off the radar for me. And don't continue on the Jeff Green train tonight.
Yeah, I'm fading that tonight just because even if he hits his upside, which is like 40 points or so, you're looking at paying up a little bit more for even more upside. So Stanley Johnson, I'm okay with him on DraftKings. Like you said, he's a better option on FanDuel, but I'm not against him tonight. Yeah. I think he's still got some pretty high upside at his price.
Yeah. If you're looking on DraftKings, Joe Johnson, just 5,400, nice matchup against Denver. But he showed last time out why he is not a cash game option at any time by putting up 9 points and 3 assists in 29 minutes against Philadelphia. So hopefully maybe some recency bias comes in and people don't play him as much tonight, but I do like him in tournaments still at that price.
His last 4 games have been so bizarre in terms of just either going off or doing absolutely nothing. So you never know what you're going to get with him, but he's shown the last 2 games or the last 3 games that he does have, high upside. I don't think he has that high upside again, but in good matchups, he is someone you can throw out there in the tournament, and he can potentially get you 30 to 40 points.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going any cheaper, I really like Wesley Johnson tonight as kind of your punt small forward option at that price. He's played decent minutes. He got into foul trouble yesterday, but still put up 23 DK points in 18 minutes against Miami. His defensive games have just been phenomenal. I think that really adds to the floor for him, especially in a matchup against Philly, who they ranked dead last in turnovers. So he's going to come away with a couple steals, a couple blocks. I think you're going to see him right around 25 minutes tonight, so I'm not really concerned about that.
Yeah, and credit to Doc Rivers, which we don't get to say as much anymore, but he's fit Wesley Johnson in sort of the perfect situation for him where he can just concentrate on his defense and score every once in a while. But, he's getting those steals and blocks and all that other stuff. So, yeah, he's definitely a good value right now.
Yeah. You know what, a power forward.
And you had mentioned Maurice Harkless as well, right?
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah, because if you're looking at it, he's going to be forced into some bigger minutes, especially against Memphis, depending on how they run out their lineups. We've seen them go a little bit small with like Jeff Green and Matt Barnes at the 3 and the 4. So that would kind of move Mo Harkless into play, but definitely a little bit risky, but he is a punt option tonight.
Yeah. So if I bring him up and he does terrible tonight, that's all your fault.
It's on me. I'll take the punt.
But if he does good, then I just got you your credit. So
yeah. Yeah. So if you need a punt play, if you're going stars and scrubs or just need an little bit extra, Harkless is definitely that guy who's going to see a bit more minutes than usual. But back to power forward here, and you look at some guys that are questionable on the sites, but they're more probable tonight. Kevin Love, Julius Randle, both probables. That just means a tick down for usage for the Cleveland guys. We didn't even see a big bump for LeBron with Love out last game. It was more towards Irving. So James kind of stays in play. I think Irving takes just a smaller hit, but it's such a great matchup for him. He's in play either way.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do like both of those players tonight, so the fact that they're probable is nice.
Yeah. I mean, especially Julius Randle. I mean, finally seeing bigger minutes, 31, 32, 32, 31 over the last 3 games. Great matchup against Indiana. And, I mean, look at the last time. I mean, he dropped a double-double in 27 minutes against Indies. So, obviously you didn't see Miles Turner, but it's still a decent matchup.
That should be an interesting matchup tonight, just in a basketball terms. But I do like Randall tonight in general. He seems to be coming into his own, just in general.
Yeah, and if you're looking, DeMarcus Cousins on power forward, not in play for me tonight.
No.
I mean, you're just looking at that Cleveland front court. They are good defensively. Just at that price tag over 11K, if I'm paying over 11K, it's going to be for Westbrook.
Right, and he hasn't been great on back-to-backs this year, and back-to-backs and coming in against a tough Cleveland team. This is just one to sit out tonight for Boogie because you have Westbrook, you have Durant, you have those nice high upside options.
Yeah, if you look one tick lower, I mean, Anthony Davis is kind of your top option by default always. I mean, went 35-7 against Minnesota earlier this season. Nice matchup for him tonight. He's not a cash game play for me.
You just throw up your hands. You go, well, is he getting injured tonight? What are you doing, Anthony? No, I actually do like him tonight. He's one of the best players in the NBA. We shouldn't have to hesitate, when he's in a decent matchup like this. But you do. I do think this is a nice play, though, for him.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's always in play. I think there are just rather other high options I'd rather pay up for.
Makes sense.
It just – I mean, power forward's pretty deep once again tonight, so I don't mind paying at those mid-value spots. So, I mean, Davis isn't played, don't get me wrong, but I think more reserved for GBPs.
Yeah, and we just got off the spiel of going all in on small forward tonight, so it'd be a lot tougher to get Davison if you're going for one of those sort of small forward combos.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, looking down at a little bit cheaper, Paul Millsap, below 8K for what seems to be like the first time this season. I mean, he's kind of struggled in the last games, but definitely bounced back against Orlando. So you look for him tonight. Orlando's allowed the 5th most points per game, fantasy points per game in the last 10 to opposing power forwards. Millsap's just a great guy who doesn't have to score to get you fantasy points. I mean, he's averaged a double-double in 3 games against Orlando this season with plenty of blocks and steals.
Yeah, I like him. I view him and Kevin Love pretty similarly tonight. Love is probable to play, so I do like him in that Sacramento matchup. I think he's pretty much a lock to get a double-double regardless of anything, even if they blow him out by 30. He's still going to get those numbers in the first half.
Yeah.
Thaddeus Young, I do like him. He's been streaking lately. He's only 6,700 against a relatively weak Denver defense. He's had over 33 fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 games, and at 6,700, that's hitting value pretty much every night.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not intrigued with Anthony Davis that much tonight is because there's the Youngs, the Millsaps, the Loves tonight in all great spots. So you just like playing, you just like going a little bit more balanced, maybe paying up for one small forward and one Russell Westbrook there. So it's just a little bit easier to go in that mid-range, those guys that we just talked about at power forward. Right. Looking a little bit cheaper, Markieff Morris, his price has come up. We were kind of debating him on between DK and FanDuel. 6,200. He's been really good, but a little bit inconsistent, especially coming off that Houston game where he was in arguably the best matchup over the last 4 or 5 games and failed to produce over 25 fantasy points.
Yeah. They DraftKings had no problem moving him right up. They moved him up like 1,500 in the last week, which is kind of a bummer. I still do think he's a play. just because of the crazy usage he's getting. I mean, they came out and said that he was going to be the guy for them. And last game, he was 6 for 22 shooting, and he still scored 44 fantasy points. So he's kind of like all around the ball, and he's gonna be in there. He's gonna get those minutes, and I think he's actually like I don't know if he's a cash game option, but I kind of feel like he's a cash game option tonight.
See, and I think that's where the price gets me between the sites. I think FanDuel, I don't mind him in cash tonight. I think DK, it's still a little bit risky because there are some lower options. I like Taj Gibson still, even with Pau Gasol back. He's just kind of a safe guy option, and Aaron Gordon as well.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Gordon's the sort of lower end, mid-tier option you're looking at tonight. He obviously destroyed Atlanta yesterday. Chances are he's probably not going to do that again, but odds of 30 to 35 fantasy points pretty good at 5,500.
Yeah, definitely, especially with him playing bigger minutes, right around the 30 mark per game. But obviously, if he's producing, he's going to be in there a little bit longer. And I like him a little more with Harris out. I think the offense comes in a little bit more. We saw him take 11 shot attempts yesterday. I just think in this matchup, he's going to rebound a ton because Atlanta ranks dead last in rebounding. So that's always going to be there.
Right. I like Fareed sort of as a YOLO tournament play. Wouldn't put him in more than one lineup, but if you're looking for sort of to be different and contrarian and maybe get 35 fantasy points, he's an interesting option.
Yeah, especially because we've seen him have big-time upside before, but, I mean, minutes is the only concern because he doesn't play over 30.
Ever. So
he's only played once over 30 in the last 10 games.
You'll know pretty quick if you're happy or not. But
yeah. So if he doesn't start off hot, you're in trouble, but that's why he's more reserved for tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Moving over to center tonight, Karl Anthony Towns is my top option. You like DeAndre Jordan too, but we're both on Towns.
Yeah, no, Towns is the top option here, even over Gasol and Drummond. He's just been so amazingly consistent with that high upside ceiling lately that it's really tough to fade him until he gets to 9,000. He's just going to seemingly get those numbers every night. But in terms of DeAndre Jordan, I just think this is a matchup he can dominate in terms of rebounds and blocks. And I just don't see Jahlil Okafor putting up much resistance tonight. And Noel is all right, but I don't think either of them are going to be much of a problem for DeAndre Jordan. So even in a blowout, I could see him getting 10 plus rebounds, a few blocks, and maybe 8 to 10 points. So, yeah.
No, I'm definitely with you there. I mean, if you look back at the last game, DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul didn't play over 30 minutes, but they still each produced over 40 fantasy points. So if Philly was able to keep this game close, you definitely like it. I think Jordan's a little bit more reserved for GPPs. I do like pairing both him and Towns up on DK. I love two centers because centers is deep tonight, and you can do it with all the guard value, and maybe you can still nab another top price small forward.
Yeah, Batum or something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. And I mean, the center is just absolutely stacked tonight.
Yeah,
you look at Brook Lopez in a decent spot. Denver's been a little bit better against centers, but still not great. So I like Lopez tonight. I like Vooch, even coming off the big game. I mean, targeting against Atlanta centers has just been the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't have a huge game yesterday, but the production isn't going to go perfectly like it did yesterday either. So this might be a big Vooch game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of your consistent cash game option too. I prefer the others for upside, but he does have upside as well, especially in a matchup like this.
And I like Al Horford, but it's going to be tough to get him in. Like I like that matchup, but it's just I just like all those other options better.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you there. I mean, the big men in that game are in great spots. It's tough to kind of really pick one, but
yeah.
I mean, Gorgui Dang, it looks like Kevin Garnett and Pekovic are both going to be doubtful tonight. That means Dang's just locked in for monster minutes. I mean, if you're looking, he's played 41, 31, 37, 38, and 39 over the last 5 games. He's your consistent option, and once again, Towns Dang, that stack is just – it's worth it.
Yeah, and that's why when you look at Horford, you look at Jokic, in that range, it's just like what are you really gaining by playing Horford or Jokic over Dang right now? You know,
Yeah.
I don't think you're really gaining much because he's shown he has that upside as well. So I think he's the play in that range if you're looking for something. And Miles Turner also in that range. And you're in agreement with me that he's probably not in play tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though the matchup is really solid, you just look at his price and his usage. It's not where you want it to be for that price.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, he still has the upside, but in terms of the guys he's sort of priced with now, it doesn't make as much sense anymore.
Yeah. And speaking of Jokic, just played 18 minutes. Right
Yeah.
before we were about ready to just lock him into being a great cash game option, and maybe he's finally the guy in Denver, and then all of a sudden Jeffrey Laverne sees, or King Joffrey sees 28 minutes or whatever it was yesterday, and 28 minutes, and he goes 12 and 10. So, and all of a sudden Malone says he could see more minutes. So Denver front court definitely risky, even though it's in a good spot.
Yo, I got to learn how to Photoshop. I got to make a King Joffrey Laverne Avi for Twitter.
I was disappointed because I was looking for a Derek Fisher MJ face, and there wasn't one. Not within 5 minutes. Twitter's usually on top of that, and for some reason today it wasn't happening.
I'll tell you what, they were on top of it last night after the Super Bowl was over.
Yeah, maybe they were burned out. I don't know what happened.
Did you see the Steph Curry beating the drum and it was just the Jordan crying face on it?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Anyway.
Yeah. Any other centers you're looking at tonight? Valanciunas, I know he's your guy.
Well, he's my guy every night. I have him in my notes. I didn't even write his last name. I just capitalized Jonas. If you weren't watching the other day, like I jokingly, and by jokingly, I wasn't jokingly throwing him in at the end there. And then like the slow realization as I looked at the play and everything, he was not a good play. So he's going to be my guy going forward. Yeah. The Joan Meister.
All right. Before you start getting any more nicknames, we're wrapping it up here. Check out Daily Fantasy Cafe for all great tools and content.